Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA network. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia in Fury. It's a joy to be with you all once again. And speaking of a joy, right here, right now, I get to speak to a guy whose voice I would say was a part of the soundtrack of my childhood and teenage years when I first became a fan of professional wrestling. This man right here wore many hats and has worn many hats over his time in pro wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the one and only, the multi-talented play-by-play commentator extraordinaire, Mr. Kevin Kelly. How are you, sir?
Carl, it's good to be with you. When you say that I'm a soundtrack to your childhood and your teenage years, it makes me sound very old. So thank you. Thank you for that. So we're exactly 12 hours apart time zone wise, right?
That's correct, sir.
You're in Western Australia,
That's right.
the Perth area, right?
Correct.
And I'm on the East Coast of the United States. Are you a member of TMDK? We must know this for full disclosure.
Unfortunately, I'm not a member of TMDK. I don't think I have enough abs to be considered a member.
Fair.
But
I'm more of the Jonah. I was more of the Jonah side, of that. I could look like him.
Yeah, so I've known Shane since I was a teenager. So it is a small world and very cool seeing guys that when I was first becoming a fan and I'd met them and now they're up in the big leagues. So it's great to see.
I was watching a YouTube video about, this is a few weeks ago, about how lacking population Australia is. That basically there are enormous parts of there's only people on the West Coast by you, on the southern East Coast, and kind of in the middle, it's brush. So it was interesting. I learned a lot about the geography of Australia. I didn't know. So Gino Gambino got me interested in Australia. And now I feel like I feel like we're best friends, Carl, because I can relate to you. But if you think about it, think about where you're from, where you live, relative isolation from the rest of the world. You cannot just get up, get in your car, go to another country. We can a little bit. Folks in Europe can do it a lot. But there again, you're there in your part of the world, and one of the top wrestlers in the world is from your area. You knew him since you were a kid. And I started down in Florida, where I felt like I was never going to, I always wanted to be the wrestling announcer, but I never felt like I would do it because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to get the job, and it all worked out. And now here we are, all these many years later, we're talking on new technology, relatively new Zoom, but we're using the power of the internet to speak via Perth, Australia, and now I live in Pennsylvania. So here we are. I just think that to me, stuff like that is freaking cool.
Me too. And I always say it when I interview a guest on the show, because I think it kind of, I don't know, spells things out for them and makes them feel, wow, somebody from the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia. We're so isolated from the very next city that we are the most isolated city in the world. When they find out that they have a fan, like I am a fan of yours, sir. So when they find out that, they have a fan this isolated all this way on the other side of the world, that makes them feel pretty good about themselves.
Yeah. It just speaks to the power of connectivity and how we're all linked and we share a common interest. And so there you go. So if we were together, hey, I'll buy you a beer, I'll buy you a coffee, whatever you want. And we could sit and have a chat because we would speak the same language, as it were.
Exactly, sir. And that kind of brings me into my first question, which is the same question I ask everybody on the show. Before you got involved in the wrestling business, how did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
I discovered it kind of on accident. I'm sorry, I'm moving a program. There we go. Kind of on accident. I remember so wrestling when I was born in New York City, lived there until I was 9. Then we moved to Florida. I went to high school, college there, and that, you know, that's where the wrestling career started. But when I lived in New York, wrestling was not on. This is in the mid 70s. It wasn't on like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning. It was only on at midnight on one channel. And I happened to be up one night with a stomach ache. And my dad was still up watching TV. And there was harness racing. I never forget this, harness racing on from 11:30 to 12. He's watching that, half watching that. And then all of a sudden, commercial comes back, and now it's wrestling. And as soon as I said, "Oh, look, wrestling," he jumps up out of his chair and he says, "Before we get going down this road, are you watching this wrestling? Let me tell you how this works." And he proceeded to tell me how fake it all was, and that it was all pre-planned and blah, 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 and blood capsules and the like. And I just went, I don't care. Just move. I just want to watch the TV. I got a stomach ache. So I watched probably 2/3 of that episode and then said, all right, I'm going to bed. And it was there wasn't anything special about it. I just remember seeing Andre the Giant in the opening credits. And then Andre the Giant was on the $6 Million Man for a couple episodes. And I thought that was freaking cool. So I watched that. And I was an Andre fan. I was a wrestling, I had interest in wrestling. And then I started to see like wrestling magazines. They were probably always there, but I'd never noticed them before. A couple of wrestling magazines. Then we moved to Florida, like I said, 2 years later, and we got cable TV. So in New York, we only had, you plug TV in and then you have an antenna and you get your channels that way. That was the way it used to work. In Florida, everything was cable, and we had never had cable before. So the cable guy finally comes to our house on Saturday morning, and he's putting all the wires around the house, et cetera. And we only had the one TV, and plugs it in. Something, mom or dad signs paperwork. He's on his way. And it's like, okay, let's see how this works. And we have the same TV that we had for New York. So I turn it on, and the picture takes a few seconds to warm up, but you hear the audio right away. You hear the sound. And the first voice I heard was Gordon Soley. I didn't know that until the TV screen warmed up and I realized I'm watching wrestling. And it was Mike Graham in the ring, Eddie Graham's son. And I don't remember who he wrestled, and I'm sure Mike Graham won. But then it went to an interview with Gordon after that, and I was hooked. And I never, ever, Carl, never wanted to be the wrestler. I always wanted to be the announcer. Even when my buddies and I were rolling around out, out in my yard, or I'm a little kid and I'm playing with action figures, I was always doing the soundtrack for what I was a part of. And that's just what I always wanted to be. And then, like I said before, I didn't know how to get there. Eventually, we figured it out.
That's very cool. And I find it so funny, the similarities between your life and my life, because when it first was on television in front of me, I literally jumped out of my seat going like, wow, what is this? I believe I saw Ron Simmons hit a double clothesline on two guys at once. And I was like, whoa, I must have been about 5. But my dad immediately couldn't let me just believe it for a second. He immediately jumped down. I was like, oh no, just so you know that this isn't actually real. And it just, he let me believe Santa Claus for such a long time. Yet with wrestling, straight up, had to let me know.
Well, Santa Claus is a baby face. That's why, you believe in the good guy.
Oh, that's very cool. But yes, thank you for sharing that. And, time wears on. You have this bug that bites you. It's not going to go away. You want to get involved in broadcasting, things of that nature. How did you finally figure it out? How do you worm your way to finding out how to get in? Did you find out through the back of a magazine?
No, it found me.
Right.
So I was going to college, broadcasting, and Florida State University, and good program, good school, puttering along, figuring how to graduate. And just getting kind of like, burned out with school. And I was like, what am I going to do next? I don't know. Maybe work at a radio station. Oh, I don't know. I go back home and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to be. and I get a job at the local radio station, and I'm there just a few weeks. The phone rings. It's a local wrestling promoter calling the station to see if anybody would be interested in ring announcing his show at the county fair. Well, I had talked to, when I had the interview, I had talked to the program director, or the whatever she was. Yeah, but no, she wasn't the program director. Maybe she was. I talked to her about, kind of goals. And I was like, well, I'd really like to work and, get involved in professional wrestling as an announcer, but I don't quite know how. But, I know I have this skill in radio. So she remembered. She said, hey, Kevin, there's a guy on the phone who's, looking for a ring announcer. Get out of the way. Give me that phone. Hello. And that was it. It became one of my great friends, Cliff Anderson. He he got me set up, not just working for him, but he got me my first audition for a television company. And that was only, I don't know, 6 months later. 6 months later, I'm moving. So I was at the radio station a total of 8 months.
Right.
And I moved to Orlando, because that's where we're going to start taping. The same model, where WCW got the idea to do the mass tapings of Worldwide at the theme parks, what, Ring of Honor is doing now. That's what we did. We were the first ones to do that. It was called the International Wrestling Federation, and we taped out of one of the sound stages at Universal. And it was a partnership. They kind of let us have the sound stage. We gave them all the advertising. We gave them all the free plugs, because we just said, it was a big commercial for Universal. It was really, really brilliant concept. And got to do, the commentary there for that. And through the, and again, then it's just, then once you've done it, and if you're halfway decent, and more importantly, if you're a halfway decent fella, you can, or girl, you'll find more opportunities come your way. Because if you're so-so at your job, okay. But if you're a so-so human being, people will just go, ugh, I don't need you. But so made friends and networked and became great friends with Billy Gunn, who I'm contractually obligated to say that, yes, Billy Gunn got me my job with the WWF. There you go. No money is exchanged, but I must plug Billy Gunn. I hope I don't have to plug his kids, especially now that they're those brats. I knew them when they were little babe, before Colton, Austin, whichever one is older. Colton was a toddler. Austin wasn't even born yet. So,
you know what? When I see his sons wrestle, I can't stop laughing, because they just look so much like him.
Yes.
Every time. I don't mean to laugh. It's just like they're just constantly just like, they're just two little versions of him, because he's a big man, and they're
Right.
probably a lot bigger than me, but in comparison. But anyway, so thanks to Billy. Is it a tryout that you do? Because I wanted to ask you if there was a tryout that you had to do, because we've heard stories of what tryouts can be like for the WWF during those days. I know Eric Bischoff had an interesting story about having to talk to a broom or interview a broom or something like that.
They made him sweep the floor. See, that's how they work.
Right.
They knew it was Vern's son-in-law, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And they wanted footage of this, cocky, arrogant son-in-law of Vern Gagne. They wanted him sweeping the floor. So they said, here's a random object. Here's a broom. If we said, hey, sweep the something, somehow they got him to sweep the floor. And they were all in the studio. They're all in the tape room, just laughing their asses off. With me, it was nice. Yes, it was a rib. I had a very good experience. Again, it was, so I'll tell the story quickly. I've told it before. I got hired to warm up the crowd for WCW's worldwide tapings, a set of tapings that they were doing. Actually, they had moved to MGM, Disney MGM studio, instead of Universal. And I was the yay boo guy. I would tell all the tourists when to cheer, when to boo, and when to start to clap for the comeback, that type of stuff. But I'm doing it off camera. That's why those crowds were so engaged. and so lively because they were coming in for a television studio. So it was no different than the applause sign going up. It was just something I would just say in between, look at me, and I'll tell you what to do. Who's ever seen wrestling before? And a bunch of hands would, go up. They had never seen wrestling before. Okay, well, here's how it works. You cheer the good guys and you boo the bad guys. So, and I knew the timing of the matches, just from knowing wrestling. So, rear chin lock and, get up and throw a couple elbows. And so I'm getting the crowd up. Here we go. Anyway, so I'm in the middle of that. And that's how long ago this was. Billy Gunn calls me on my pager, and I go to the payphone in between shows, ring him up, and he says, call Bruce Pritchard at the office. Now, I had asked Billy, because they were coming down on a run of house shows, and as had been through like 94 and into 95, they weren't bringing in Howard Finkel anymore. They were just sometimes using locals. Find out if they're going to hire a local, and if so, could I be the local? He said, okay, I'll check. And that's what I thought this was about. Call Bruce Pritchard. Oh, the ring announcing thing? No, they want to bring you up for an audition. What? All right. So I call him up. Hi, Bruce, Kevin Kelly. Hey, good to talk to you. What are you doing? I'm actually in between shows in WCW right now. I'm warming up the crowd here worldwide. You haven't signed a contract, have you? No, they haven't offered one. How are the shows? Kind of the shits. Okay, Kevin, we want to bring you up for an audition. Is Hogan there? That's the question. Is Hogan there? That was the other question he had. God, no. Well, how are the shows? Kind of the shits. So we went, and I flew. That was what, June 6th, I think, and June 24th. No, June 6th was the audition. Flew me up, pick me up in the car, drive to Stanford, and go right up into the makeup chair. Makeup artist Jill Clark, sweetheart, was a great friend of mine for all my years there, and met Kevin Dunn, met everybody, went downstairs, started to do the audition. Tell me a little bit about yourself. He handed me a baseball bat, and I told to start. I noticed that Robin Ventura was the signature on the autograph on the bat, so I told a story about him and his great hitting ability at Mississippi State University. Random sports facts that I know. And then did a couple of interviews with Jim Ross, where Jim Ross was getting ready to wrestle Shawn Michaels for the WWF title at Madison Square Garden. So that was kind of cool. Then JR and I went and called a couple of matches, and it was okay. I didn't think I did great. I didn't think I did terrible. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. And I get up and I open the door to leave the little soundproof booth where they did the audio recording, and there was a lady there from HR. She hands me a Monday Night Raw t-shirt, the old logo. And I was like, thinking to myself, oh man, this is the consolation prize. Thanks. Here's your t-shirt. And I got the fuck out over here. Everybody was super nice. I get in the car and I'm on the way back to the airport, and I'm kicking myself like, oh, what could I have done differently? What could I have done differently? I don't know. And I don't know, we're 10, 15 minutes down the road, and the limo driver gets a call on the car phone. It was a big deal. And hello? Yeah? We're on 95. What? Okay. All right. We'll be there in 15 minutes. Okay, bye. They want you back. Back for what? I didn't steal anything. So he finds the exit, gets back on the highway, goes back to the office. And there's Bruce Pritchard and the lady that handed me the t-shirt, Lisa Wolf. And they said, we've decided that you're the one that we want to meet Vince, because they had a bunch of announcers tryouts that day.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody else. There was one girl that was sitting in a chair when I got, she was like waiting for a car ride, but it could have been for that. It could have been for something else. I don't know. But anyway, you're the one that we want to meet Vince. Oh, okay. So they had to get me from the TV studio over to the office, which is just a 2-minute car ride. But they got somebody to drive me over there and bring me up to the 4th floor and plop me down in a empty small conference room, and then I'm sitting and waiting for Vince. And I'm waiting for Vince, Carl, and I'm panicking. What am I going to say to Vince? And he comes in, very gracious, shakes hands, sits down, talks to me just a little bit. And in sales vernacular, I threw up on his shoes. That's the saying. Basically, I gave him everything. Blah. I'll be great. I'll work hard. I'll do my best. Loyal guy. Somehow they hired me anyway. And then the first day was June 24th, 1996, which was the day after the King of the Ring, where Stone Cold Steve Austin says, "I just whipped your ass." Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass." Many say the birth of the Attitude Era. So I take credit for the entire Attitude Era. You're all welcome.
Excellent stuff. I've read and also did a bit of research and looked at some old episodes of Raw. I didn't realize how early on in your time in the company that you actually smack boom in the hot seat right next to Jim Ross on Monday Night Raw. I mean that to me was that's pretty huge. What was that like being kind of not thrown into the deep end, because you already have a bit of experience, but I mean this is Monday Night Raw. This is with Jim Ross. How was that for you?
Unbelievably nerve-wracking. And I think, and in hindsight, I go back, I think, okay, why did they just throw me out there? And again, it wasn't just like they kept me in a isolation booth or parked me at home and then called me up and said, "Monday, show up and you're going to do Raw." So I was watching and learning and getting to know people and figuring things out the way they did TV. Was doing other syndicated shows back in Stanford. A lot of listening, a lot of watching of other announcers doing the same jobs. So I was preparing, I guess, as best you can. But I think it goes back to the model of the way Vince Sr., his father, would book wrestlers coming in to wrestle Bruno or Bob Backlund. You would come in and wrestle the champ first. And then if they liked you, if it drew, if it was good, engaging, whatever, then you would get a rematch or another rematch, and then Bruno would beat you in the cage. Then you would step down and start to wrestle the other guys, and eventually kind of put everybody over on your way out, and then that would be it. But that's the only thing I could think of, because, boy, it doesn't make sense to take somebody really freaking new and without any fanfare or hype. And the reason I got hired, the reason that they wanted another announcer, is because Vince didn't want to announce anymore. He wanted to produce TV behind the scenes. So I was sitting in his chair. So I'm, flanked by Jim Ross and the King.
Yeah.
And I think that was just it. Let's see what we got. And let's throw them out there and sink or swim. I did okay. It wasn't great. The first show, I never will forget this. It was in Wheeling, West Virginia, which is a cool kind of industrial town. And it was freaking hot. Again, it was August. It was the day after SummerSlam. And there is no air conditioning in the Wheeling Civic Center. And it was like record heat wave, like 97 degrees. So 40 degrees for you, let's say. That's about what it was.
Gosh, yeah.
In the building with no air conditioning, hot lights, thousands of people. Oh my God. And Shawn Michaels wrestled Yokozuna in the main event. It was Yoko's last television appearance. And Shawn Michaels had beaten Vader the night before and now was wrestling Yoko. So he was wrestling over 1 ton of man in the course of back-to-back nights. And how could more guts than brains, how could Shawn Michaels overcome this? And the fans did not nearly see him overcome it. Not because of the heat or anything like that, but rather they almost went overtime. So Shawn Michaels finally, and they're screaming in the headsets. Not at me, but they're screaming in the headsets. Go home, go home, go home. Please, please, please. Shawn Michaels finally hits the super kick. Sweet Chin Music, cover 1, 2, 3. Good night from Wheeling. We'll see you next week. Off the air. It was that close.
Wow.
So, yeah. And then excuse me, then either before or after, no, it would have been before, we taped other stuff. And so those aired in subsequent weeks. We were doing one live, and then the next 3 weeks were taped.
Yeah.
So it was, and I did that for a few months, and then they took me off, and then, and without a lot of feedback. That was kind of the mental side of it. I'm 20. How old am I at this point? 29. And I'm going, wait, did I do good? Did I do bad? I don't know. I didn't understand, just kind of go with the flow yet. And it's a fake subjective business. So what are you going to say? You 14% of the time you said the incorrect. No, there's nobody like that. They just, it's a feel. That fake subjective line, that's a Danny Doring. I give him all the credit in the world. But so then I'm not really entrenched either, because I only have a 1-year contract, Carl.
Right.
And you had to move your family up. And lo and behold, at the end of that year, Kevin Dunn didn't want me sticking around.
Ah.
Remember that we've decided we want you to meet Vince?
Yes.
Well, the vote was 2-1. 2-1. 2 for, 1 against. Bruce Pritchard, Lisa Wolf said aye. Kevin Dunn. And I had to report to Kevin Dunn. So I'm not saying he harbored a grudge, but I'm saying he harbored a grudge. He didn't like me.
Oh,
I was too wrestling. Well, I came for wrestling. What do you want?
It's a wrestling show.
Oh,
wait a minute. Sorry.
Don't you start with that, Carl. That's wrong. And you know it.
Oh, dear.
The insanity. It's freaking
crazy.
insane. But somehow I lasted. Okay, but somehow I didn't get fired. And somehow I wound up sticking around 7 years. Go figure.
That's great stuff, Kevin. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, because there's something about this thing that frustrates me these days, but back in the day, it never bothered me at all, because back in these days on television, they treated the backstage interviewers like actual journalists, rushing around trying to get the scoop on the developments of whatever the dramatic situation was on that evening's episode. Yourself, Cole, Coach, and the often considered obscure backstage interviewer Lucas. I'd like your opinion on this change, because I feel like now what they've done with the backstage interview in every company is water it down. Someone is asked a question, and 8 out of 10 times, whether it's WWE, NXT, AEW, Impact, there's this lazy habit of companies that they're in where they just have somebody interrupt the interview by walking in 10 seconds in whilst they're in the middle of their answer. And then they have their confrontation, and then they walk off, and then the interviewer stands there and just
right.
And then we fade out. What happened?
I was guilty of being that. Lazy. You said the word lazy. The whole concept is lazy. From setup to execution. Nobody is willing, able, or understanding of everything needs explanation. Why is there a camera here? Why are we interviewing? What is the point of this thing? And it changed and morphed as and again, WWF is the driver of everything. As far as I am concerned, they set the pace. What they do, then everybody else does. Most of the time, WWF will do it the best, and then you get the watered down versions from there. So it was kind of in that, do we need to explain the camera? Well, we're a television show, pal. And there was that push and pull of changing it from a sports-based presentation to it being a action, dramedy, etc. television program, much like you would see other places. That was the rationale. And again, that's not like conscious decision, and we're going to put out a press release that says we're no longer a sports-based presentation, but rather we're sports entertainment. it just became part of the vernacular. I don't remember ever being told not to say wrestling, because I've gone back and I've listened, people, share YouTube clips or whatever, and I've listened to old matches that I've called, and I've said wrestling throughout. So I think that was after me. I left in 2003. So that may not have been a hard, fast rule back then, nor was it enforced if it was. But I'm sure that if I would have said sports entertainment, Vince would have probably liked it. But I don't ever remember him saying that word. But that's it. That's the evolution. And then from there, it gets very lazy. And a lot of what WWF has done over the last, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years has been a little bit, some of it's good, some of it's atrocious, and a lot of it's just there. Yeah. It's not as exciting as it once was. And, there used to be 10 million people that watch wrestling on Monday nights in the United States of America, and now they're jumping up and down if they get 1 million, 2 million for Raw, 2.5 million for SmackDown. Where did all the people go? Were they taken up in the rapture? Did the UFOs get them, or did they just find something else to do? That's it. I don't understand. People cut the cord now, and that's the big thing. We don't have cable anymore. You mean to tell me that people don't watch television? I don't know about that. What are they watching? Why can't they? Why is there no measurement of a television audience other than the antiquated Nielsen system, which is just ridiculous? I can't imagine if I'm logged in, like I would assume. So we're doing this interview via Zoom. I would imagine that the folks at Zoom know that we're doing this interview, and they know that you're logged in and I'm logged in, and there's two people doing this.
Yeah.
Well, why can't TV do the same thing? This is what I don't understand. Why can't we get real hard numbers?
Yeah.
Not approximates based upon averages and blah, blah, blahs. But there were 974,642 people watching this segment. And then every split second, people are logging in or logging off. And the number is just like this. Now, there you take your average, but it's built upon reality. I don't understand this. I think you and I should get into the science business and develop this technology. You in Perth and me in Pennsylvania. We'll make money. We'll make millions, I say, unless they really don't want to know the information. And then we're out.
So thank you for the insight there, Kevin. I just feel like back in the day, they treated like at least the interviewer's position as if they were actually in the trenches trying to get the scoop on the story, as opposed to now it's just somebody asking a question for the excuse of some sort of confrontation between two people lazily put together. That's just my
correct
point of view. You seem to as time has worn on in your time in the WWF, you wear a lot of hats. There are a lot of things that you did. Whether I'm watching an episode of WWF Superstars and you're doing the voiceover for the whole episode, as we're finding out about, I don't know, China on the set of Third Rock from the Sun, etc. I think also maybe you do some work for the magazine. Could you tell me what a usual week would be for you, start to finish, when you were wearing the most hats possible in your time in the WWF?
What a horrible time. No, it was fun. Working in the office every day, over in the tower, being the managing editor of the magazines for a couple of years. And that involved, writing stuff and then just making sure that the flow of copy was getting in on time and getting to the copy editor, getting to the page designers, and then turning it into a magazine. Basically all it was. And then helping out with, first it was the AOL site, and then it became, the infant WWF.com. Then it would be bouncing back and forth. So at a random, at a certain time, set time, I'd go over to the studio to do voiceovers, and then come back to the, the desk do the magazine thing. Wednesday. Okay. So, but then if I had TV, because then, then we started to throw the travel in, and you'd get up, let's just say it's a non-pay-per-view week. Sunday, generally fly out, get to the town. Sometimes it was Monday. Sometimes you drove, but only if it was in the Northeast. And, get up, do Raw. And then Tuesday, Superstars. Fly home Wednesday, voiceovers. After landing in the, late morning, early afternoon, whatever it was, and going to the office doing the magazine thing for a few hours, then they would call and say, okay, the shows are ready. Come on over, do the voiceovers. Do that. Thursday had more voiceovers, more magazine stuff. Friday morning, Superstars recording. Full day at the office Friday. 1 day off a week, generally Saturday. And then unless we had pay-per-view, and then Saturday was the travel day.
Okay.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Okay,
so,
excellent. Because I interviewed Scott Hudson from his time in WWE.
Great man.
And yes, he's actually the reason why I started doing this podcast, because we spoke on the phone for about 6 hours once, because I wanted to ask him every single little nerdy question that no one would ever care about, because I wanted to know all the little things that went into the job that he did. And he was very gracious with his time. But I kind of see you and Scott Hudson very similar in the roles that you were in, because you're doing a lot of different things behind the scenes. One thing this is the question that a lot of people out there might be surprised by this, but this is the question that I am most excited to ask you, because I have searched on the internet, tried to find out the reason behind some of this, and I just can't figure it out. You and, of course, Dr. Tom were commentary team for WWF Metal, which I believe replaced Shotgun Saturday Night. But I've seen for years that sometimes it's called WWF Jacked. Sometimes it's Metal, sometimes it's Jacked. Every copy I've seen of the show was always WWF Metal. I've never seen anything come up as WWF Jacked. It sounds like a weird question, but what is the difference between the two shows?
So if memory serves me correctly, there was Metal was more of the international version of Shotgun Saturday Night. Again, because of gun laws and programming, having a show called Shotgun in England, for example, wasn't going to fly.
Right.
So they came up with the more generic name of Metal. And then I think Jacked became the name of the show after the name Shotgun Saturday Night went away, I believe. So basically it was the two shows, or it was the same show, just with one was for international markets and one was for U.S. markets.
Right.
And very common because of segment lengths. You can't just take the same show and that airs in the US and send it to a foreign broadcaster and just say, well, you guys, it'll air, the commercials will air when we put them in. No, this is our commercial times. So you have to edit your segments down so that they fit into the construct of the international programmer.
Right.
Therefore, it required a re-edit a lot of times. So they would cut entrances. You'd get at the random crowd shot and, wrestler A would be in the ring. And it was tricky for them to do. It was sometimes a really tough task to cobble together a show. But I without, because that was not part of my job to understand, syndicated programming. That I think is the best answer, the most accurate answer I could possibly give you.
Okay.
Regarding this very nerdy subject, but I do love it.
Good. I'm glad that you liked it, because I felt myself as I was asking this, wow, this is really nerdy, and I'm not sure if anyone out there cares as much as I do about this, but I do. I find
You're
it to
trying
be
to bring.
very...
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say that you like logic, and when things
Yes.
logically don't make sense, you go, WTF, and you try to find out the logic behind the illogical.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, I can't explain it. It just is what it is. Sometimes is what it is the answer.
Awesome. No,
But
because
yeah, so don't be too, don't try to bring logic into this illogical world.
no, because I really like used to poke at Scott Hudson and be like, "Don't tell me you really used to sit there, Larry Zabisco, and do your commentary for 2 hours of Saturday night in 1999, and then do it again for an English audience with references to English soccer and the royal family." And he's like, "Yeah, that's what we did." I'm like,
Yes.
God, just blows my mind that it's just
We would do the same show 3 or 4 different times,
oh my gosh.
depending on what was going on. Sometimes
Right.
you would do customized Canada versions of the shows with a ton of ticket plugs. Hey, we're coming to, and it would be like a whole Canadian tour. So it was a lot of small towns, and it was sponsorships with these specific stores, and kind of the address at the corner of 17th and Main, and
Right.
Waukesha Babash. And so yeah, it was a lot. And yeah, you get kind of rattling and brave, but you certainly know the matches.
Right.
And
Interesting.
and so it'd be like, well, the cutoff's coming, so let's get the point in. And then once the cutoff's coming, then there's the break. So we're going to break, and then we're coming out of break, and we know how much time we have before the comeback starts, before he starts throwing some elbows into the guy's midsection and hits the ropes. 3 elbows and runs to the ropes. But that was the, so yeah, you got good at it. But a couple times, you'd get, depending on the time of the day or the circumstances, you get kind of slappy because you called the same show 3, 4, 5 times now.
I think it's incredible, and I hope everyone out there that might not have known about this maybe throws a little bit more respect on some of the commentators of professional wrestling and what they've had to go through over the years.
Bobby Heenan said it beats carrying refrigerators. Pretty easy freaking job, dude. It isn't that bad. More of the editors and the producers who needed to make these square pegs fit into round holes. Sometimes it was really tough. And I would just be like, I don't know how you do this and how you make this. Nobody knows how the sausage is made. They're not seeing this. And if they're watching the finished product at home, they have no idea what you had to do to make these segments fit, but it watches like a good TV show, a good wrestling show. The fans would be none the wiser. So good job.
I also read that you've been involved during those years as a talent scout.
Yes.
What was that process like? Having to go to all these different places to scout talent. Are there any notable names of talent that you recommended that maybe did make a name for themselves, or people that you thought really had the opportunity or could have had the opportunity to make a name for themselves, but for some reason didn't pan out?
In the somewhere 99, 2000, yeah, let's say 2000, and the developmental system is up and running. Cornette leaves to take over OVW. I talked to him about kind of transitioning into his role, where it was more like just manager, just making sure that the things are getting done, and people are asking for different information. Okay, I can have it. Be the one source for that. Also booking the extras, the enhancement guys for TV, which was becoming easier. It used to, again, be back in the day, you needed 25 guys because you were doing this big cattle call of matches, just recording everything. They were all squash matches, and nobody cared who any of these dudes were. Just do they have gear? And that's it. But anyway, so I looked at it like, let's see if we can find some people that we might want to hire, because there's a lot of good talent out there, and there's nothing wrong with a named guy beating this young up and coming, hot name on the independents that nobody's really heard of nationally, in a semi-competitive match on a syndicated wrestling program.
Yeah.
And again, it was a little bit of that. What is it? What are we? Are we sports? Wouldn't the boxing promoter is putting together a boxing television show? Isn't he going to want the best fights? Well, that's what I thought, but I knew we weren't in the business of selling tickets anymore, even though we kind of did. But regardless, it was a little bit of push and pull. So the Haas brothers, first ones that come to mind, Charlie Haas and his brother Russ, who tragically passed away, 28 years old, heart attack. I started working with, getting to know some of the independent promoters and started being involved in some of their shows. Again, it was kind of some of the things that Cornette was doing that I just really took over. And so I got to see more guys, and I got to understand, like, kind of booking cards and putting together matches, making things fit. They had their guys. Let's see these guys. Let's try to make it all fit together. ECWA, which was, of course, Jim Kettner's promotion and the home of the Super 8. That was where I met the Haas brothers. They were from New Jersey. They had gone to Seton Hall University. They were both from Oklahoma. They were great amateur wrestlers. They also did gymnastics, but they were also college educated, and both were working. Charlie was working on Wall Street, and Russ was working for Waste Management. They had, 6-figure jobs. They were doing great, but they wanted to be in wrestling, and we got them there. That was where we first met the Briscoes. Had fun beating up on the Briscoe brothers. That was awesome. I booked Low Key for Madison Square Garden. I always tried to pick, like, of course, regionally. Hey, you're from New York, you're from Boston. That's where, like, my friend Brutal Bob Evans, one of my, my great friends, he got to be on a lot of different shows every time we were up in New England. So Boston, Worcester, Providence, etc. I always made sure that Bob was there. Why? Because he was reliable, because he was good, but he also stayed in contact with me, and he would look at the schedule and say, "Hey, Kevin, you guys are going to be in 6 weeks. You're going to be in Providence. Okay, you're there." It just took one thing off of my plate. But if he was lousy, I wouldn't have used him, because there were a lot of guys like that. The phone was ringing all day long, and a lot of times it was guys that weren't that great. But I'm encouraging them to do things to get better. Anyway, so Low Key at Madison Square Garden, pretty cool, right? Gets to wrestle Christian. Christian knew who he was. Christian wanted to, and again, the boys were great. They were like, we want to help, Brandon get a job. We think he's pretty cool. Christian gives away a lot of the match. They have this really, really good back and forth competitive match. And at the end, I was told that Christian got kind of chewed out a little bit, like, because the enhancement match was for him to get over, and he just wanted to make a good match, which, again, what are we? Push or pull. There was no heat on Low Key, no heat on me. I'm just putting guys in spots. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that a lot. And then as the developmental group expanded, Memphis got more involved there. OVW was solid. There was a group in LA, there was a group in Puerto Rico, then everything kind of morphed into Cincinnati. That was about the time of the WCW sale, with Les Thatcher, and did stuff there. And then probably 2002, I was traded. I got traded over to the TV studio because they wanted me to help produce Confidential.
I see. Right. Yes, because I've had several guests on the show over the last 2.5 years done this show. Give you a lot of props and a lot of thank yous. I'll name a couple of them. Scoot Andrews, of course.
Oh, my boy.
Billy
Love Scoop.
Fives. And
Another Florida guy, another great.
that's right. He's fantastic. And of course, J.R. Ryder.
Ugh. He kept having this idea because, of course, Test, he was on the scene at the time, and he said, I look like Test. Yeah, you do. But I'm not as big as he is. Yeah, I know. Well, what if I was Quiz?
Horrible.
No, he was great. All those guys were great. I love those guys. I brought all of them to ECWA with me. I brought all of them to tapings wherever I could. I just wanted to be around my friends. Here was a good one. So was it Russ or Charlie? One of the Haas brothers had gotten boots. They ordered new boots, but when the boots were shipped, they had giant soles on the boots, like 2 inches, way too big. And you start to wear that around, and it's like, what are you trying to be, tall? Okay, so Kevin, we've gotten these boots, and we need to have the bottoms trimmed down just for today, and then we'll get them resold when we get home. Okay, I'll ask around. So I asked a couple of the guys, on the crew, whatever. Mark Ayton was very helpful in this regard. And we were in Hartford, Connecticut, but it was like, it was a holiday, Veterans Day, some sort of holiday where everything literally was closed. So an hour or so goes by, and he's like, man, I tried to find some place. There's no place open that's going to be able to do this. All right, I'll give them back their boots. So they're watching the pay-per-view from the night before the Haas brothers, and they're watching it in catering. The Undertaker, Kane, Chris Jericho, all sitting there. And I drop the boots on the table, and I go, here you go, Frankenstein, just like you wanted, 2-inch lifts. And I turn around and I walk away. And Taker looks back, and he's looking at the boots, and he's looking at the boys like, what the hell? And Russ Charlie, you son of a bitch. Oh, God, you son of a bitch. And I couldn't stop laughing. That's what we did. We had fun.
It is fun. Excellent stuff. So, okay. I really thank you for your time, Kevin. I haven't got too many questions remaining. So I really appreciate it.
That's a lie. You're just out of time.
Getting close.
You've got 100. You've got 100 questions.
No, I wrote 20. But
on the September 5th episode. And it's okay. Other friends of mine that are in the industry do the same thing with me, just granular detail. And I'm like, I don't remember that. And then if they refresh my memory, I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of remember that. But they're like, why did this happen? And I don't know. What is your problem? I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's cool, Kevin. Okay, look, if I put out an interview with you and I didn't bring up The Rock, then people will get on my case. But usually I try to like, what are you doing? Usually try and steer away from the obvious question that, when you ask him about The Rock, but I have to. So did you two work things out beforehand? What would happen, or would he surprise you? Because he was very good at making fun of. Coach was called.
Oh yeah, a little bit of both. Sometimes we'd walk through what was going to be the bit. Sometimes not. Sometimes he would, and then I'll cut you off here. Okay. I didn't necessarily know what the cutoff would be. Sometimes he would say, if I ask you a question, answer it this way.
Right.
Okay. But pretty much that was about it.
Cool.
And I would just say, I'm going to ask the question. Kevin Kelly's role in this, I had a motivation. I wanted to ask The Rock the pertinent question, and I wanted The Rock to finally say, Kevin, The Rock has been giving you a hard time all these months. The Rock wants to let you know you're doing a hell of a job. That's a great question. And then gives the answer. That's what I worked for every time. I've got this question nailed down. I'm proper. I'm prepared. I'm on time. I'm waiting anxiously outside The Rock's locker room. And when we come back, we'll hear from the great one himself. So I get to ask the question. And when he would put up the hand and stop me, it was a soul crusher. And then the zing, I would be like unaware of it because I was just so crestfallen that I didn't get to ask my question. And I'm Elmer Fudd just stepping on the rake every week and it's smashing into my face. That's the job. That's what my job was. I was the foil for him. You notice nobody does that? Who does the live interview now? They'll do it live in the ring. They'll pipe in the sound to make it sound as if it's live, but these were freaking live, man.
Yeah.
Even on the recorded shows, even on SmackDowns that were recorded, or Sunday Night Heat that was recorded, they were live. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Super cool. That's all I really wanted to know about you and The Rock. I didn't want to have to go on and on about it, but I just wondering if he surprised you at times, because sometimes when he would do it to Michael Cole, sometimes I feel like he actually scared the shit out of Michael for a second. Maybe Michael just sold it really well, but he'd be very abrupt and all of a sudden start shouting. And
everybody had their different reacts. So yeah, that was Michael Cole did have that scared shitless look several times. But he's stuck around. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like he and I are, the cheese stands alone. That's it. That's pretty much it. Here we are.
Yeah. Okay. I've read this today. Have to ask you about it. Is it true? No, I know it's true, but I need to know how this went about, because this shows such big balls and almost George Costanza style balls here, because I heard that JR was told to call you on the phone and tell you that you were being released in 2001 on your 34th birthday, and you said, no, I don't want to be fired, and I'll come in tomorrow and I'll have a conversation with you about it. And then you did not be fired. You weren't fired, and you still stuck around the company for a few years. Could you tell me about these big balls of yours?
I was in the process of buying a house. The closing was a couple of weeks away. You can't fire me. I've already told my landlord I'm moving. I'm buying a house. Do you even know what I do, JR? Do you even know how many hats I wear? Who's going to do all the jobs that I do if you're letting me go? We need to talk about this, man. We need to talk about this, because I know it's not going to work for me. And he said, okay.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? I was going to get fired. What's the worst that could happen? He's going to shoot me with a gun? I didn't call him an asshole. I didn't call him an MFer. I just said, hey, no.
What are you going to do? Double fire me?
Yeah.
Because
double secret probation.
To me, it makes this is just a fan coming from the fan in me. It makes no sense that Kevin Kelly was not going to be there anymore, because, being from Australia, even in 2003, 2004, even during then, the internet, it wasn't that prominent over here. It was still dial-up internet. So you didn't know, all of a sudden, Too Cold Scorpio is no longer in the Job Squad or in the WWF. I never knew what happened to him, or I wonder what happened to that guy. You'd always think, whatever happened to this person? Because they were there 1 minute and then you couldn't find any information at the time knowing where they were. So for me, though, you were on so many different things. So yes, you wore so many hats. So to me, it's just why? Crazy.
Why? Then when they finally did fire me, I knew it was coming, but I was the last one to get cut.
Right.
It was 2003, and they had been going department by department by department. And you hear about it every, this Friday, last Friday, Friday before that, people are being let go. I knew it was coming. I was in the last round. And everybody was very nice. And they said, we're going to give you, because you were here almost 7 full years, a couple of weeks shy of 7 full years. We would treat that as if you were here 8 years, and we'll give you 4 months of severance. And I said, I did a lot of work while I was here. I had 2-3 jobs at a time. I'd like 6 months severance, please. I feel I've deserved it. And the lady said, okay, 6 months.
Well
Again,
done.
why not ask? It's the worst that's going to happen. I didn't ask for anything ridiculous. I asked for a couple of extra months of severance. It's all the difference in the world, too, because I was out of work 11 months. And I'll tell you what, man, they were wanting the townhouse I lived in, the bank.
Wow.
They wanted either paid or possession of the, give us the keys or pay us the money you owe us. I don't have it. I'm working on it. So, yeah, it was tough. But we got through it. Everything worked out.
They have. You've been able to become, the main play-by-play guy for Ring of Honor, of course. You do a lot of work for New Japan Pro Wrestling. The
I've
Kevin
started my
Kelly,
own promotion, American Excellence Wrestling.
of course, and I've got that right there as well.
Historic Hamburg Fieldhouse. Our next event, Saturday, April the 29th. And get your tickets at axwtix.com. Fans in Australia, you want to find out the comings and goings of American Excellence Wrestling, patreon.com/AXW and become a subscriber.
Yes, all that information will be in the description on YouTube when this goes out. So please check it out.
Like and subscribe.
You must be stoked.
And share.
You must be stoked, Kevin.
I am. I'm thrilled. I love going to Japan back and forth. I'm happy now that the pandemic is over and that we don't have to wear stupid masks anymore. I just, again, it's fun. And I come back and I sleep a couple of days and then I'm good to go, fresh as a daisy. And my wife makes me work outside and I'm old and I was very sore the last couple of days because I'm not made for this. I never have been. I've been a city mouse and I live in the country. So we have a garden and we have chickens and
awesome.
And I'm always sore.
That's good.
Like my freaking hands, dude. Like I got so many little like cuts on my hands from fence and pulling up tarp and digging stuff and cutting back. Oh God, it sucks.
I love being in the garden.
It absolutely sucks.
I had one random terrible storyline idea that I thought would be great or would have been great back in the day.
Let's pitch it. Let's hear it.
Okay, back in the day, I'm talking like, I don't know maybe this is 2007, 2008. I thought it would have been really cool to bring Kevin Kelly back as an on-screen character as Kelly's father.
Whoa, come on, man.
You would have been 19 at the time that she was born.
No. I was, no. Older brother.
Older brother?
Older brother. Uncle. Uncle is funny.
Uncle, okay.
Father, no. No. That would have been.
I said to my friend, I was interviewing Kevin Kelly yesterday, and he said, at first I thought it said Kelly. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never really thought about it.
We've never met. I would love to meet her.
So would I. She's actually born on the same day in the same year as me. Got the same date of birth. Yeah. Same. Well, I've got the same birthday as Shane.
You were born first. No,
January 15th.
You were born first, though. You were born first.
Probably. Yeah.
So you're therefore older. You are always at least 12 hours older. Sometimes you're 13 hours older. Big show off.
Kevin Kelly, we're getting right to the tail end here. This is the final segment of the show, finding about your favorite things. It's a quick fire question for a quick fire answer. Kevin Kelly, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, here we go. Kevin Kelly, who's your favorite pro wrestler of all time?
Dusty Rhodes.
Do you have a favorite match that you have called over the years?
I
know it's a tough one.
I would say Okada Omega from the Dome.
Very cool. Okay, so there were times where you were actually a character. I know in the ECWA with the Alliance of Defiance. Do you have a favorite adversary that you had in your time, as a character in pro wrestling?
Well, when the Haas brothers and I were not beating up the Briscoe brothers or assaulting their parents, starting riots, we enjoyed greatly beating up the Cheetah Master, and as much pain and punishment as we could give out to him and all of his adoring fans in St. Matt's Parish. Ooh, we the Cheetah Master. Huh. I'll give you Cheetah Master right there.
You beat him for the belt too, didn't you? So
damn Skippy Hippie. One glorious month, ECWA champion. That crooked promoter, Jim Kettner, robbed me of my title and my glory.
Getting away from wrestling now, Kevin. Do you have a favorite book?
The Bible.
Wonderful. Do you have a favorite TV show?
Well, that depends. Probably Seinfeld is one that I can always go back and watch. Yeah, I would say Seinfeld is probably my favorite all-time TV show.
Excellent choice. Do you have a favorite film?
I've always loved Rocky. That gets me teared up. Caddyshack, though. Caddyshack's moving up there. I watched it without sound on the last flight. I just wanted to see what the what do they call it? Subtitles were. I just wanted to read it, and it was very funny.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite musical artist or band?
Oh man, David Lee Roth, Van Halen always seems to get me, grab me. Yeah, I love them.
Excellent.
Beautiful. I heard Beautiful Girls for the first time yesterday in a long time. I haven't heard that song in a long time. Unchained had been coming up a lot on my Spotify, but Beautiful Girls came up yesterday. Wow, man, what a great song. I freaking love that song.
It's very cool. And yeah, Unchained is my favorite Van Halen song. Okay, getting away from the arts now, Kevin. I've got 5 more to go. Do you have favorite food?
Pizza.
Excellent. That's usually the number 1 answer on this show. Do you have a favorite place to eat on the road?
Ooh. So in America, you can't go wrong with Waffle House, or that a lot of people say you can go wrong with Waffle House. That's part of the charm. Is that fights could be breaking out all around you. Or Cracker Barrel, so that you can get the Don't Go Messing with the Country Boy special, which is a Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian creation, but it is the Country Boy breakfast. But Don't Go Messing with the Country Boy is how you're supposed to order it.
Right, that's very cool. We don't have either of those establishments here in Australia.
You have Hungry Jacks. You have Hungry Jacks, though. Gino taught me that.
Of course he did. Do you have a...
Why? Because he's fat? Is that what you're saying? He's not fat anymore,
No,
how dare you?
Hungry Jacks is a staple of any Australian. Do you have a favorite alcoholic beverage? And if you don't drink, just a favorite beverage in general.
This coffee mug is very, very empty, and that will be filled in just a few moments with my favorite drink. I love coffee, 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 coffee. I'm not a drinker. I used to be, but I don't drink anymore.
Excellent, no problem. 2 more to go here. Okay, this is like the naughtiest one, Kevin. You see a good-looking lady, where will your eyes go to first? What is your favorite female attribute or body part?
Well, of course, her eyes first. And the color. If one is really googly, I'm not gonna talk to her. But no, the eyes are where you're, and then of course from there probably to her boobs.
Very nice, no problem with
and
that.
her butt.
Yeah, that's another good
one. But start with the eyes. Anybody that says they don't look at the boobs or the butt, lying.
Yeah, no, we've had actually Mr. Don Morocco is a butt man, or an ass man. Just so
ooh.
That was his answer. And I like Nikita Koloff's answer. He says he likes the shape of a woman. I thought that was quite classy.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Last one here, Kevin Kelly. Favorite curse word?
I can't say it.
Oh, I mean, is it that one, is it?
No, not that word. You guys love that word.
Oh, yeah, we love it.
Mad dog, you mad dog. Oh.
Gino's been showing you a lot of stuff, doesn't he?
All the boys have. Robbie Eagles showed it to me. Kyle and Davis showed me. Mad dog, you mad dog. Is he still around Perth, by the way?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I'm going to go see him. That's why I want to go to Perth. I just want to get booked so I can go find Mad Dog and scream at him. The way those videos, it depends. Favorite curse word depends on the situation.
Right.
Sometimes a good F-bomb fits. Sometimes it's overkill. I do try to avoid taking the Lord's name in vain. but I will drop the F-bomb. So-and-so, here's my favorite. And this is really one I learned in wrestling. He's the shits. It's the way to describe a general person's, wrestling. He's the shits. But it also works for a lot of things. This mower is broken. This mower's the shits.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite.
That's very good, Kevin. I like that answer. Well, Kevin Kelly, I will. And you have been the opposite of the shits in this interview. This has been so much fun. My face hurts from laughter and smiling. So you've done a very good job here. And it's been so nice for me to have the chance to have a conversation with somebody that was a part of the big thing that made my life completely go askew. From I was supposed to be a basketball player and a phys ed teacher, and then I just got obsessed with wrestling. So I've got people like you to thank for it, Kevin. So
you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
So when the family is shaking their head at you, they can blame me. That's totally fine.
Excellent, Kevin.
You're not the shits either, by the way, Carl. Appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. So thank you again. And once again, most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia. Got a fan over here, my friend.
Awesome. Let's do this again. Can we please? Because this is
absolutely fun. Yeah. There's plenty more questions that I would have liked to have asked, but we could do it again. Maybe in like a year and a half or something like that. Just give some time. We can
there you go.
Get together again, Kevin. But thank you again. And thank everyone out there for joining us here on the Insider's Edge podcast here in the WWA Network. I'm Karlifornia. This is my new friend, Kevin Kelly, and we will see you down the road. Thank you.
Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.